This is like Photon torpedo stuff. And the reason the laser is important is because it completely changes the cost dynamics of fighting the drones. We completely flip the cost dynamic against Iranian interest. Remember, the whole point of Iran was they would set up these ICBMs and then thousands and thousands of drones to overwhelm inexpensively our very expensive missiles that we designed to take down these drones. Every time we take down a drone, it costs the Iranians a few $1,000s, and we're spending a few $1 million. Also, they can make drones a lot faster than we can make our interceptors. But now we have means to intercept those drones that cost, well, effectively nothing, like this giant laser. CENTCOM released footage of the HELIOS system mounted on a destroyer operating off Iran's coast. The New York Post reported HELIOS has been used against Iranian drones during Operation Epic Fury. In early February 2026, weeks before the war began, HELIOS took out 4 drones in a live test. Whether HELIOS has recorded confirmed combat kills is not yet publicly verified. What is confirmed is that the system is deployed, operational, and pointed at the same airspace through which Iran has been sending hundreds of drones and missiles every day. Here's why that matters, regardless of the kill count. Every Patriot interceptor costs $3 to $4 million per missile. Every THAAD interceptor costs $10 million. The United Arab Emirates has intercepted more than 755 drones and 172 ballistic missiles since the war began. Run that arithmetic at even conservative figures, and you're looking at several $1 billion in interceptor expenditures across the Gulf in under a week. But HELIOS runs on electricity. The marginal cost of firing a laser is essentially zero. The ship's generator produces the power. There's no missile to reload, no magazine to deplete, no resupply ship needed. Against a Shahed drone that costs $30,000, a laser engagement costs less than the electricity bill for a large apartment. The economic architecture of drone warfare has been Iran's most sophisticated strategic weapon in this conflict. Flood the defenses with cheap munitions, force the defender to spend $1 million to stop a $30,000 projectile, do that 1,000 times, and you've imposed a $1 billion tax on the defense while spending only $30 million on offense. HELIOS, the laser system, breaks that equation at the physical level. If directed energy weapons can absorb even a fraction of the drone saturation that's been overwhelming Gulf air defenses, the cost asymmetry that makes Iranian drone doctrine viable begins to invert. Iran spent years developing the doctrine that makes Shahed drones strategically valuable. The U.S. just deployed the technology that may make that doctrine obsolete. This war is the first real combat test of whether it works. I think that's super cool. We actually torpedoed an Iranian ship, and of course the left is losing their mind. How could you torpedo that poor, innocent Iranian warship? Didn't you know they were just coming back from a naval exercise that they were invited to by the West? And they were just going home. They were walking home. They were thousands of miles from the area of combat, and you just torpedoed them. And then when you torpedoed them, you didn't give them warning first. You didn't warn them. You were about to put a torpedo in their guts. And then when they were sinking, you didn't rescue them. You didn't try to help them. Oh, you monster Americans. This is some official footage of the Sri Lanka Navy rescuing 32 Iranian sailors who survived a U.S. torpedo attack on the Iranian ship Dana on March 4th, about 19 nautical miles off the coast of Sri Lanka, so much closer to the shore than had previously been reported, which means could facilitate the rescue by Sri Lanka. And John Conrad, who I cite quite a lot on this maritime stuff, says, oh, wait, so the U.S. Navy didn't torpedo the ship in the middle of the ocean and did give the Sri Lanka Navy the coordinates to go help. Interesting. It's almost as if we have satellites watching and search and rescue cooperation agreement with other navies. Sideways Coyote writes about this. So this is about the U.S. using a standard munition, like not a nuclear bomb, a torpedo, a big torpedo, but a torpedo, to sink an Iranian naval vessel, a combat vessel, that was returning to the theater of combat. Several days ago, the occupying government of Iran stated that they were closing their sea lanes closing the Strait of Hormuz, and all civilian traffic would be targeted for annihilation. All civilian traffic. So here we are 4 days later, this vessel, an armed combat naval vessel, which is returning to theater from outside the theater, is in international waters, has had half a week to communicate with its bosses in Iran, has had half a week to communicate with anyone, to seek a safe, neutral port to wait out the conflict. They could declare themselves non-combatants. They can intern themselves in a neutral port. They could give up their munitions, ask to make their way to port so that their dudes could go back to their families. That's all allowed under international law, but they didn't choose to do that. This was a frigate, which is a fairly small warship, basically the smallest thing that is a true blue water warship. They aren't very durable, even when a first world navy is building and operating them. So the video footage of the attack is, shall we say, dramatic. We don't routinely go into our ordnance and reduce the explosive payload by half or 2/3 in order to give the enemy a fighting chance. Aside from the insane safety risk, there's just really no point to this. And it's a shame the ship's damage control environment was so poor that they lost probably twice as many sailors as they should have. I mean, that's a real shame. I'm a sailor, this guy writes, both a U.S. Navy veteran and an active live-on-the-water sailor. But the general opinion seems to be that we should have done something to allow this vessel to return to the theater of combat, because sinking them was bad, was mean. I'm not even going to get into the insane risk and casualty ratio of trying to board an enemy naval vessel, but kind of the big deal here is that they had days and days and days to say something, and it appears they did not. Or if they did not accept terms that were acceptable to us. And they have plenty of weapons. These frigates have all the armaments below. We're in an armed conflict with Iran. We're not going to assume its Navy vessels have no munitions on them. Naval guns, a 76 millimeter, 40 millimeter, 30 millimeter, 20 millimeter, 12.7, that's basically 50 caliber, surface to air missiles, anti-ship missiles, anti-submarine warfare missiles. So you give this Iranian frigate a warning, and what do? They drop an anti-submarine torpedo into the water. There's no obligation to do that. We have lunatics like this saying, under the Geneva Convention, you're required to rescue the crew of a ship that you sink during war. To leave them to drown is both illegal and depraved beyond belief. The U.S. military fights with zero morals. It's today's Nazi army. Well, first of all, this was the Navy. This was the Navy. And that's not a rule. And they're just making stuff up. And in any case, whatever obligation a buoyant ship might have to take on survivors, submarines have never had that obligation. It would be completely impracticable. Have you ever gone through one of the museum submarines available at different ports for tourist purposes? There's not a lot of extra room in there. You're not bringing, and how exactly would you do that? You're going to bring 30 or 100 or 130 saved Iranian naval combatants onto a nuclear American submarine? But like there's a jail cell in there to secure them? I mean, the whole notion is madness. Madness. And I thought this was really a funny cartoon. This guy is always funny. SKS cartoon. You're violating the international law, they yell at Trump. And Trump says, why don't you call the world police? All right, I will. And the world police, of course, is Trump. Trump's phone ringing.